Whoa, love it. I think it actually worked. Travis Carter here, back in the studio, fluffing around with my microphone because Aaron's not here. Normally he does this. He's doing Aaron things. Anyway, to my right here. Oh, by the way, this is the Greater Wealth, Edge Radio Australia. We're live on air, which is awesome. I'm back in Australia on holiday, causing dramas, causing
Welcome back.
Problems,
Welcome back.
issues. It's so weird sitting in this seat because Aaron's got duck's ass disease. He's so short. I can barely fit behind here. Anyway, so yeah, that's my stinky foot on there. Don't care. I'm having fun. Anyway, so Derek, to my right, Blue Sky Factory. How you been?
Yeah, I'm being great. Very busy. Lots going on at this time of the year. We had a big seminar on Thursday, which you guys came, you and your lovely wife came in for, and it was a great night. I enjoyed it, at least. And we were talking about the parallels between this wealth transfer that's going on, what's been going on in England and also the United States. So fascinating times, really unprecedented times. And yeah, it's exciting time to be alive.
I have to say, it was a great show. It was a great turnout. The coffee was terrible. That's the one thing I had to say. They had one of those stupid little instant coffee machines. You press a button and then you wait half an hour for it to do its thing. But other than that, Comfort Inn did a great job once again. So thank you for inviting us. And then we have a speak and annoy people and piss off a few people, but that's just what I do. So today we're trying something a little bit different. We're going to go for a little bit of the shorter format for the folks out YouTube and the YouTube shorts and all that sort of stuff. But I think what we do, we jump into it. Couple of articles that I've found during the week that I'd love to get your opinion on. The first one, superannuation. There was a report that the super that's available at the moment, are we on the same page? Yep. So they were saying that, and this is a big article, so I'm not 100% sure how to take this one yet. So I'm still wrapping my head around it. But they were saying that because we have so much money in superannuation at the moment, with the downturn in the market, with the US economy reopening, $4 trillion of Australian superannuation is actually at risk. So first of all, I didn't know we had that much. I thought it was about 3 trillion. The bit that dumbfounds me is the amount of people who have all this money in superannuation. They go, oh yeah, my super will be in retirement, but they actually have no control over it. They have no idea what it's invested in and where it's going. And they don't, even if let's say they had 500,000 in the superannuation, they're nearing retirement. They go, you know what? I really want an investment property. They don't know how to buy that investment property through these super funds. So I'm not saying you can't buy it through your super, but through their super funds. Like, how concerned are you that people have no idea what's going on with their retirement?
Oh, it's obvious, but it's always that way. And that's what gets me. Ignorance is the thing that hurts you and can kill you, right? And how much have we seen that over the last few years? I think the big observation thing that I will never forget is that the global financial crisis, I was working in the high-end law, accounting, financial planning firms, and heard that many people bemoan about how much they just lost in their superannuation, and were saying, now I cannot afford to retire. It has just come at the wrong time in my life, this downturn, and saying my financial planner put me into these investments. I would have been better off in cash. And I heard that story over and over, and I was really sad to hear that. And really, it comes down to how well are you stewarding what has been granted to you. Most people don't think about superannuation because it's something their employer pays on their behalf, out of sight, out of mind. And they get the statements, every quarter, every 6 months, something like that. And so they don't really keep their eye on that and how it's performing and how it's actually going. And if that's your retirement plan, well, the problem with that is a number of things. Number one, you don't know what it's invested in. Okay, you've never met the fund manager of that account. You've never actually broken down into what they're actually invested in within that fund. That can be difficult to actually extract, even from the product disclosure statements, to know exactly how they do it, how they trade, etc. And trading is all about risk. Investing is all about managing risk. And that's the big part of that. Additionally, I think they need to be reviewed from time to time in terms of the performance of funds and how they actually perform. Because just because it was great 5 years ago doesn't mean it's great today.
Spot on.
The other component of that is products change. And often what superannuation does is it links insurance products to that process. Okay. And insurance products change from year to year as well. I mean, I actually went and met with my financial planner over our life insurances with my wife and I just a few months ago and said, look, I just want to review how this performance is actually going. And we decided, okay, keep going with it. But it's important to have those reviews and just have a check, have a bit of an audit, what's going on.
I think in the interest of transparency for everyone out there, case study, I actually don't have superannuation.
Yeah.
I've done that intentionally. I'm trying to think, because the Australian laws are so strict, I've got to be really careful what I say here because I'm not allowed to give financial advice. I didn't like, my ex-wife was a financial planner, and this is probably also the reason why I did it. I didn't want her to have access to my money, my life insurance and all that sort of stuff. After my motorbike crash, I couldn't even claim my life insurance. I got the temporary disablement cover off it, but I couldn't claim anything else for the permanent injuries I've received from it. I'm not a big fan of life insurance, superannuation. I think the whole entire system is corrupt, broken, just a way to take money off people. So I now have more freedoms to move. I'm more effectively, you could argue that I'm actually retired now at 42, but I've managed to achieve this over the last 5 years. And this is without a full-time job. So there's a lot of things you can actually do, which are, you can argue is a better option than superannuation. So, and you don't actually need as much money as what a lot of these financial planners are telling you need, because a lot of them are turning around saying, with the products that we have, you will need, you know, $2-3 million to retire. But there's a lot of products out there which they can't tell you about.
Okay. Let's put some caveats in here. First of all, everybody's circumstances are different.
Correct.
Okay. So you've got to take
We also live in Vietnam, so our yearly living expenses is about $12,000. It's not, you know, $90,000 to $100,000.
Right. The mindset of retirement is a really bizarre thing. I don't ever plan to retire. Yeah. And the reason for that, I look at it historically, it's only come in since the late 1800s. And it was through Otto von Bismarck, who was basically, the aging population decided, you know, we need to support these people. And this is a fairly new historical concept. Yeah. The third part of that I would say is, I get concerned about the mindset of, will I run out of money when people hit retirement? Yeah. Right before I die. And I go, how much is that playing into people's mindset? It's not an abundance mindset. It's a scarcity mindset where it's going, I've only got X amount to get through before I hit the grave type of thing, or it's going to last me that long. And the longer I live, the more it's a two-edged sword. Having said that, for a lot of people, the self-managed super fund from an accounting perspective is clever because it's only 50%, taxed at 15%. And then, you know, once you reach retirement ages, it's tax-free. So it can be very effective that way. Yes, absolutely. 100% agree with that one. But the issue is, the goalposts keep changing on super, which puts a lot of people off in terms of putting how much they put into it. So it's a complex one. It's one that the government likes to change because when they run up the bill on the credit card, as far as national debt is concerned,
no one keeps an eye on it. Just tax the shit out of your superannuation. No one's going to know.
Exactly.
And that's what I don't like.
And I don't like the fact that they're now punishing people who have over $3 million in their superannuation account because, you know, and they're going to do it higher than 30%. I mean, that just destroys the whole concept of accumulating more there.
Spot on.
So it's not a fair game. Yeah. And I think that's what people are rising up and have a real issue over.
What I'm learning is there's super. If you get cleaned out on your super, pretty much your retirement plan disappears. And I'm a great supporter of alternative income streams. So with us, I think it's really important to what I determine as retired. When I say I'm retired, is I'm not dependent on anyone else for my income. So that's not, I don't need clients. I don't need anything. So with me, a lot of my funds comes from the US stock market and also through crypto trading. So doing that, the only person I need to be able to trade at the moment is Interactive Brokers. But if Interactive Brokers disappear tomorrow, I can go to another brokerage firm. I've got options. I can move around.
Right.
So I'm actually their client. They're not my client.
Right.
So then with the crypto side of things, same sort of things. Like if one exchange closes down, I'll just go to the next one.
Right.
So I'm not reliant on
Provided you
anyone.
can get your funds out. Yes.
Yeah, correct.
Right.
So, and that's why you should never put all your funds in one thing. That's just basic financial basics 101. So with this, so many people are so reliant on their superannuation. They're reliant on their employer. They're reliant on their, like, let's say they run a supermarket. They're reliant on their customers coming in to buy what they're selling.
Yeah.
So for me, they're not retired. You could be a business owner, but if you're reliant on someone else, you're not truly retired, in my opinion, because you're dependent on someone else for your income. To me, to be retired, you've got to be self-sufficient.
Well, I mean,
other people.
yeah, okay. Conceptually, I know where you're going with that. In some ways, I think you are dependent on other customers, even if you're trading the market, because there could be other traders on the other side of the trade and the counterparty to take the trade on.
Yeah.
You could argue that. It really, the market is...
Always
works
right.
well. The market works because there's many participants in it.
Yeah.
Right. And if the that liquidity dries up, then you don't have anyone to trade with. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. And a lot of the big difference, of course, employment. Sorry, in terms of business owners, is are they actually running a business or are they self-employed? There's a big difference.
Yeah.
Right. If you're self-employed, no, you can't retire because you've got to keep having customers come in.
Spot on.
And you do the work and provide the goods and
dependent
services
on someone else.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think that's part of the wealth journey anyway, for some people to raise the capital so they can get into investments like you're doing. And that's a different strategy as well. The beauty of it is that you can take insurmountable amount of income in, provided you got the right systems to manage that and onboard it. And so you're not limited in trading your time away for money. And I think that's a smarter play. And how that goes out. Not all investments work out as well, I can tell you that. Right.
No, I can personally attest to that one.
Right. So and people think housing is safe in that. And I've been burned in housing.
Literally.
Yeah, literally. And that's, that was international in one situation. But I've had investment property and it's just not worked out for me because the market changed, the rental yield changed. It went from being positively geared to now neutrally geared and negatively geared. You have a tenant in it just starts destroying it. And it's like, this is a nightmare. So it's not a free ticket in terms of property investing. Yeah. I actually think you have to be more on the ball than people make out, or they give you the sales pitch.
Spot on. Especially if you're like, for us, we had one where we had our family home with a granny flat in the backyard. We were managing that one. We had our tenant crash into the house, but she couldn't drive. We've had people call up. We had winds that were 168 kilometers an hour come through, and they're like, "Oh, there's a banging noise." Yeah, no shit. It's a storm. Like that sort of mentality of, there's a lot of idiots around, and as a landlord, you get to deal with those idiots nearly on a daily basis. So it's
the value of getting a great tenant, you want to look after that tenant.
Oh, absolutely.
If they pay the rent on time and they look after the house, brilliant. You want to do everything you can to keep them.
And that's really funny. Our two best tenants were probably from the most left field place we ever had. So one was a homeless guy. He was living in a cave. This is for our properties up in Geraldton. Turned out to be a great bloke, never skipped rent. Anything came up, he used to just give us a call because he was just so stoked to have a house. The other one was a young kid who wanted to go on an MMA journey, training hardcore, wanted to go to Thailand for study and all that sort of stuff. So I said, look, don't worry about your rent for a couple of weeks. Go chase your dreams. He was phenomenal when he had to move out, because he had to move to Perth. These were our Geraldton properties. He actually tried to find us the tenants and all that sort of stuff. Like these two young kids, they were both under 30 to 25 sort of like years of age. They were amazing, but the older guys that I had in those houses were nothing but problems. So it's trying to find good tenants is 90% of your struggle with real estate. And you can't trust real estate agents because they get a commission whether it's a good tenant or a bad tenant.
Now, you can buy investment properties through self-managed super funds.
Correct.
And this is the big attraction for a lot of people who love property. The great thing about a self-managed super fund is just not your retirement money. You can pull together with up to 5 other investors, which is massive. And people then can manage that way. And I've known people who've done that with commercial properties as well.
I've also heard through self-managed super funds, you're able to lend out your super funds to other people as well. You please go see an account on this one. This is where it gets really, really complicated. Do Derek's course first.
You've got to also
blueskyfactory.com.au, blue with no E, to actually learn a little bit more about it.
The danger of that is if they're a good jockey, will they pay back the loan? And that's what you've got to look at as well. I mean, there's always a risk in any investment. It's understanding what that risk is. And so a lot of people have moved to self-managed super funds because they're less susceptible to the market ups and downs. And what the big concern for me is I am expecting volatility ahead. And I think what may happen is that some might want to pull the rug from out of the market in some different areas to be able to buy it really cheap back and put fear through the market. But also there may be others who go, we're going to blame Trump on this and try to bad mouth his tariffs and that sort of thing as well. Now, why is that a big concern for us over in Australia? Well, the Australian government has just committed trillions of dollars of the superannuation market to the US markets. And so, whether you like it or not, by default, the government's made this promise with your retirement money on international markets. So, I mean,
again, you've got no control over where your superannuation fund goes.
The beauty is our students love the techniques that we educate them on, because they often see opportunity in non-directional ways. So if the market's crashing, they can make profit from that. Or if it goes up, they can make profit from that. And they love that kind of fourth dimension, what I call, in terms of the flexibility of the markets. And so it's what I call the sleep at night factor. So if you're coming out to retirement the next few years, it's never too late to start your education journey. And I think that's what's really, really important for people to apply that. One of my mentors, actually, funny enough, in options trading, didn't start till he was in his 70s. Yeah. And he sold an investment property on the terrace to fund his trading account.
That sounds familiar.
And he was making $30,000 to $40,000 a month doing that. And so he was going, look, the rental return on this, he used to call it a license to print money, his technique and strategy and the way he was doing it.
It's stupid how quickly you can make money on the options market. But like all good things, there's also bad things. You can also lose money really, really fast.
If you don't know what you're doing, you can absolutely blow up an account big time. And that's the danger of it. You got to know what you're doing. So it's like this. People go, is options trading dangerous? Well, yes, if you don't know what you're doing.
So is a gun.
Yeah, you wouldn't give a knife to a 4-year-old, right?
Spot on. Or arsenic to a 12-year-old.
Right. It takes responsibility. And if you're going to go to that level, the beauty of options for me is that they were designed to actually hedge risk in the first place, right? And metaphorically ensure a share portfolio. I mean, that to me is a far safer position than being what I call naked in the market, having no protection upon that portfolio in case of a downturn.
So infomercial time. So Blue Sky Factory, bluskyfactory.com.au. Derek has 3 really, really awesome courses. Cannot stress enough. He's actually responsible for setting me on my path. So thank you for that one, Derek. But just going back to the superannuation side of things, I think this is another one of those situations where just because something's put at risk doesn't mean you're going to lose it. So in the article from the ABC, the downturn in the market, there's always going to be downturns. There's always going to be upturns. It's just one of those things. It comes in cycles. It comes and goes, and people complain. Then they change the policies and they sort itself out. Yep. I think this is really, really important for people to sit down, have a discussion either with their family members or the people who are involved. Say, is this going to affect us? What are we likely to see? And what countermeasures are we going to have if it does actually do this? This is one of the things I do every time I put a trade on. I go, if the market goes up, I'm going to do this. If it stays flat, I'm going to do this. If it goes down, I'm going to do this. Right. And I already know exactly what actions I'm going to take weeks in advance, depending on what the market does. Yep. What it does, it takes the stress out of it. It takes the emotions out of it. And I can sit there and look at the markets with an open mind and say, great, this is doing exactly what I planned for, because I planned for the whole entire lot. And then you take the actions as required as what the market does. And when it gets to that point, you make the decision. So first of all, it keeps your mind agile. It takes the emotion out, so you're not making like panic decisions. You've already done the panicking. You've already assessed it. You've already made the decisions. And if you need to, just get up, go for a walk. Get away from it.
You've applied a process, a business process to what you're doing to the market. And that's where a lot of mum and dads get in trouble, is they don't have that process or even designed it or thought it through and their due diligence. As much as I heard, Auntie Mary is now investing in this company because she met the CEO. And I'm not mocking that. That used to be me, right? To some extent. And until I wised up. And what changed me was awareness and also education. And you've got to have both. And I did years and years of study on this. And now these days we make it easy for people. They can learn it in 20 weeks.
So this is a great little segue as well, because I'm just keeping an eye on the time. So we've been talking about super, buying property through super and all that sort of stuff. Now I think it's prudent to go actually have a look at the property markets as well. So there was another article that did come out. I think it was the ABC that said it. So they're talking about the interest rates, what's likely to happen over the next 12 months or so, and also the inflation. So in the article, they were saying that they're looking the November, they kept the rates out at 3.6%. Inflation is running higher than what they were originally planning for it to be. So it was about 3% instead of the 2.6 or 2.4, which they wanted. So they're not anticipating that we don't get any rate cuts until later next year. So for the people hoping for a rate cut over Christmas, ABC is reporting bad news. You're not likely to get it. What do you think this is going to do? Partially towards superannuation funds, because some super funds do actually invest in property. And on top of that, for the people who are trying to negative gear their properties, property growth, massive migration coming in, taking up supply and demand. Do you think this is going to be more detrimental for Australians, or is this going to make things easier?
I'm really struggling to see how the whole property thing is sustainable in Australia. I really am. Particularly for first home buyers. Right? I know they get the $10,000 grant, but I mean, who cares when its average price is $2 million in Australia.
Sorry, funny you said that. I saw an article, 18 suburbs in Brisbane are now the median house price is over 2 million with 5 over 3 million.
And
that's $300,000 as a 10% deposit.
The problem is that the left only know two tricks, right? It's basically raise taxes and raise taxes, and that's it.
And then raise taxes on your superannuation, then blame Liberals for it.
They don't. And also they've been importing the whole immigration issue. I know it's a hot potato in Australia.
1.2 million people over 2 years.
It's not sustainable because the infrastructure has not caught up or was not even planned for, and makes the books look good in terms of GDP growth, but it's not working. And I really am feeling for parents who are saying, I don't know how my kid is going to ever be able to afford a home as they leave their university studies, or they just leave high school and get into the job market. And I think the old strategy of leaving home, getting a job, and then getting a mortgage and living in that house and paying it off for the next 20, 30 years, it's not working.
That business model it hasn't worked probably since the late 90s. I don't think it's worked.
And I think people are starting to wake up to that. So what are the solutions? Well, the land release in Australia is ridiculously controlled. And when they do release it, the legislation and rules and red tape to actually do anything is huge. Now, a lot of people don't want more land release because then that affects the entire property market for those already in the game. They don't want their prices to go down. They love the fact they've got all this equity in their houses at 1.2 million plus or whatever it might be, right? They love that.
Especially
and I get
over East. Especially over East. The value of the house has just gone nuts.
I get it. I get it. But it's how long do you keep doing this where your own Australian children can't afford to live in their own country? So they either leave the country.
Like we did.
Yeah. But you can afford it, but they leave the country, or they, this is going to be managed really, really carefully, because if you bring poverty to the masses, they at some point are going to kick back. Exactly. And so we all want everyone to prosper, and there should be no poverty in this country. There should absolutely be no homelessness in this country. We've got so many resources in the dirt,
so much land,
so much dirt, so much agricultural opportunity as well. Nobody should be going hungry. Nobody should be homeless. And yet we've got this situation where, what I call the Babylonian system, where the greed and self-interest is controlling it so much that people are finding it tough. Now, I'm all about you getting wealthy, absolutely, but everybody should be getting a fair deal in terms of the wealth growing. And for goodness sake, I mean, I pointed it out on Thursday night. This taxes, somebody was saying about tariffs and all this and how Trump's tariffs are bad. And I said, hang on a second, does Australia have tariffs?
We actually tariff. We're the few countries that had we had a trade deficit to America, not the other way around.
But here's the thing where I'm going with this is, do we have a tariff on cars?
Yes. We have tariff on everything.
Why do we have tariffs? To protect local production, right? How many production companies do we have of manufacturing of cars do we have in Australia now?
Oh, we lost the early 2000s. I think it was South Australia with the Mitsubishi was the last one.
Zero, right? So why are we still paying tariffs to protect a local industry that doesn't exist anymore? Who's stupid? Right. People talk about the American example of being stupid, right? No, we're stupid for not questioning why we're still paying for a tax that was intended to protect the local industry, which no longer exists. That's stupid.
and then we give all the money we get from taxes into other foreign countries to bring in for that exact thing we're trying to protect.
Stupid.
I don't get it. So
it's stupid.
I think what a lot of, and I'm going to put this one back onto a lot of the parents, and I'm not saying you're at fault here. So hear me out on this one. I'd love a lot of parents to start looking at alternative ways to get their kids into the property market. Stop looking within CBDs or, within half an hour of the city. Like, I get most of the jobs are actually in the city, but if you want to get into the property market and you've only got, say, $20,000 deposit, you are not going to get a house in the CBD. You're not going to get an apartment these days in the CBD.
But
You've got to start looking out of
But
the
even
city.
regional properties have gone up.
Not that much.
Well, there was a big increase during
Williams.
Sorry.
So I'm going to use Australia as an example.
Okay.
3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house in the town of Williams, which is about an hour and 20 minutes out of the CBD.
Mm-hmm.
So coming from Mandurah to the CBD, same time period, but you're east instead of south. You're not on the coast.
Yep.
You can get a 3-bedroom house for about $320,000 and you're on about 2,000 square meters.
There you go.
Okay. So a lot of people, they have to go either north or south in WA. You have to be in these certain little areas. No, why can't you? Because that's what we did. Our first investment properties, well, we couldn't even afford a house in Perth. So we went and looked into the regional centres. So we got 2 investment properties in Geraldton, which gave us enough of a boost in our income to be able to afford a mortgage in Perth. And that's how we did it. We looked regional. There's a lot of great opportunities out of the city, but no one is looking there. So you've got to start looking outside the box. It is still possible to get fabulously wealthy on property, but you've got to understand, you've got to live within your means. And I had this argument with my grandmother the other night. And so my auntie Chris, who's from Sweden, was saying, oh, it's so hard on kids these days. And I said, okay, no worries. How often does her kids go out for dinner when they're supposed to be saving for a house? And she's like, oh, it's Sweden. It's like 3-4 times a week. I said, okay, no worries. How often do they buy a cup of coffee? Yep, no worries. How often do they go out drinking? No worries. And so I turned it straight to now. I said, okay, when you and Pop were saving for your first house, how often would you drink? So Pop was a smoker at the time. And she'd go, oh, Pop would save up and get 1 bottle of beer, not a King Brown, just 1 bottle, standard mini. And Pop and his mum would sit on the veranda and drink a beer together. They'd share the 1 beer. He quit smoking to save money. He always packed his lunch. He'd do every single piece of overtime that he could do. And even Nan used to help with the milk run just so they could afford their first house. That sort of dedication to buying a property does not exist in our generation these days.
Yeah. I also think, though, and I agree with you. And a lot of kids have walked out, and said, I want a house that's the same or better than mum and dad's house that
as their first property. You can't do that and expect to get ahead.
And I've seen couples do that and they get mortgaged up to the gills, and then they're stuck for the rest of the next 10, 20 years trying to sorry,
plus some.
Yeah, and they're trying to get out of that deal, and not really living. They're actually slaves to that square meterage, in my argument, because they can't do anything else, right? I think it's really important that we've got to look at this too from an abundance mindset, because there's only so much money you can save and cut costs to. I think the smart money, the smart way to think is, how can I increase my value to the marketplace? So there's a both needed. Where is the money leaking? Yes, that is important to understand and look at. You're absolutely right, because you'll discover. I mean, I had one client who discovered they were leaking $15,000 a year in subscriptions that they weren't even aware of. Okay, all those online apps and stuff like that. He's making, after he and his wife did that budget, it was like, wow, okay, now we know where a lot of our money's going.
Statements.
Exactly. Yep. The other part of that is like, how can we increase our value to the marketplace? Where can we find money? Where can we build that? And I think in the early parts of it, I would argue that in some ways you've got to be focused on one thing, particularly if you're building a business, right? If you're trying to build 7 streams of income at the start, you're not going to do any of those really, really well, right? And you often see that with the market, the network marketing guys. Right, where they'll see something and then they see a shiny object that makes them $50 more a month, right? And they'll switch the whole game plan over to there. Yeah, you seen that scenario before?
No, it's me.
Right, I can make another $50 over here that I wasn't earning here. And it's like, look, if you stayed focused on what you're doing, maybe you'd have more success over the long term. If you're starting a business, you're in it for 10 years.
Oh, right? Absolutely.
You have to think that long term in terms of that. When you've made enough money, when the business is now successful, then you start thinking about diversifying your incomes and getting other income streams in.
Can you get someone else in to run it while you sort look
Right.
at that next shiny thing.
It's it's more growth.
Yep.
But I think people aren't wanting to commit to 10 years. They'd rather have the easy road in. Wouldn't we all? Wouldn't we all? Let's be honest. Wouldn't we all want that?
This is one of the things I think, and this is, I get really political now. This is where I think the unions have wrecked Australia. If the unions weren't around, I reckon our incomes would probably, instead of being like minimum $32 an hour for an entry level flipping burger sort of thing, like when you add your casual loading rates and all that sort of stuff, if you had your minimum wage, let's say it was $15 an hour, half of what it is, everyone's gonna go, oh, how you don't afford everything? Well, easily, like going down to the petrol station to get two Dare iced coffees won't be $9.50. It will be like $6.
Not necessarily. It depends on what the cost was to produce those iced coffees and get them in there.
Correct.
I think what's transportation costs is really sparked what the initial inflation was a few years ago.
I still personally think it was actually the labor cost that made the transportation costs so expensive.
It's both. It's both.
Yeah. So you've taken the cost to get the fuel in, because you've still got to transport the fuel into Australia and then from the depot to the petrol station.
And how much of that fuel is taxed?
You've got the taxes on that. You've got all your union fees. You've got all the everything else off. You've got the labor side of things. I've tried running businesses, like I've tried staying cleaning businesses and all that sort of stuff. Our number one expense on every single business, and I used to run a roof tiling contractors crew. So it wasn't the equipment, it wasn't the elevator, it wasn't anything. It was the cost to hire the staff.
Yep.
And then superannuation was my second highest.
Yeah.
Sorry, I won't say so. It was my insurance to insure the people, and then it was my superannuation as the third biggest expense.
Yep.
So I still think the unions have caused a lot of problems. Like, I get why they're there. I think the government allowed them to have too much authority. So,
well, they've done deals with them, and that. I mean, I remember growing up in the 70s, right? Yep. Mum would be in the middle of dinner and bang, electricity go off. It's a union strike. Okay.
There you go.
They switch it off.
And I got kicked out of school because all the teachers' union said, no, we're not working anymore until you give us a pay rise.
So
I didn't mind. I thought that was great.
Yeah, as a student, you think it's a dream come true, right? But that's what we've been contending with and changing over the years. But you've got to think smarter, and it starts with your education. And the sooner you start your education, the more opportunities open up, because then you can make decisions. What's in alignment with my values and aligned with my skills? And then from there, you can go into different areas and explore this. Well, this works. I mean, well, look at you. You're a case study of that.
Exactly. Now, the other one as well, and this is why I'm really a big fan of alternative incomes that you don't really have to put a lot of effort into.
Mm-hmm.
Because let's say you do want to buy the house. Let's say you do get yourself mortgaged up to the eyebrows.
Yep.
And then you get that second little side hustle that it might only be like $20 or $30 a week. Like, it doesn't have to be a lot. You start putting an extra $20 or $30 into your mortgage. Have a look how quickly that's going to go down.
Yep.
And then you've got your capital, the capital growth of the property on top of it, your reduction of your interest. It's actually a three-prong attack in that sort of situation. So all of a sudden, you've got all this extra equity in your property, and then you start looking at another house and another house, and you start snowballing from that. So that's that point of view. So this is a very long-term investment strategy. But let's say you want to have a look at something else. So you got your little side hustle, you're getting your extra $20 or $30 a week. So let's have a look at, say, remember those BlackBerry phones?
Yeah.
So their share prices at the moment is about $2.30 per share. So that $20, $30 extra, all of a sudden that gets you a foot into the stock market.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't, there are some assets out there right now that are really, really cheap. But you've got to know which ones to put it into.
So,
but this, you would be amazed. You're absolutely right. You might think that $20 putting that aside is not a lot.
Yep.
Do you know what? You can do that consistently over a few months
and
watch
grows.
it grows big time. And it's the discipline of consistency. That's the thing.
So when I first started trading, because there's only so much you learn using fake accounts. Because I didn't want to blow up my account straight away. So I put $500 into a trading account, and I literally used BlackBerry shares. That was my first shares that I actually purchased. So I was doing a thing called a covered call. I'm not giving personal advice here, so just the things that you can do. I purchased the shares at $2.30 each. So that was $230. Then I sold a contract over the top of them to sell at $2.50. And I got exercise. Like, I lost my shares, but I actually made about 20 cents a share. And all of a sudden, I've nearly doubled my money in the space of about 2 months. Now, that contract had to be 6 months for someone to actually buy the contract. I had to sit there and wait on it. And it took a while for it actually. But the sense of, I finally made money on that stock market, I was so excited. And I think I called you and told you about it. And it's like, I don't think you actually cared. This was like such a small transaction, but yeah, it was. You can make it, and that was, like I said, $230 to get in. I got paid $5 for that one.
Yeah,
Doesn't
well,
seem
what
like
I love is the light bulb goes on and you see how
And
it
it
actually
worked.
works. That's right, it worked.
and that's what I was happy about. So
Exactly.
And it was a good thing getting exercise at that point, but that was the strategy. I knew if it went up, this is what would happen. If it stayed flat, I'd just redo the strategy. If it went down, I'd just redo the strategy because I've still got the shares.
Yep.
I just set the contract again, set and wait, set and forget.
Yep.
And it was great.
Yep.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, especially on the property market, yes, the interest rates are likely to stay flat where they are. There may even be an increase in the future. That's what the ABC article said. But property is one of those things you've got to understand how it grows money. You have to be prepared to sit there. You've got to be prepared to wait for it. Stock market is different. Crypto is different. You've got to understand each of those systems. You've got to understand what's coming up in the future, and you need the knowledge to know what to do.
Different asset classes and property, you're looking at, again, 10 years at least to stay in the game to do that. Otherwise, it's a very expensive exercise when you look at stamp duty and costs of holding the asset.
Insurances is now stupid expensive. And if
Council
Greens have their
rates.
way, inheritance tax, you won't be able to pass it on to your kids because they just won't afford the tax.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't believe it's going to go that way. I don't think it'll get that bad.
They're pushing it.
No, of course they are.
They nearly got it through in Queensland.
Yeah. Well, if they do that, they're going to see a mass exodus out of this country, or
They did.
a revolt against it. And that's the poorer thing about it, because when you start doing that, then those who are wealthy pull their money out of the country and say, we're out of here, bye. And that's what they're not seeing, the cost of doing that.
Yep. So, and prime example is happening right now. There's I forget what they call. There's we have the resident REIWA, which is a real estate institution in Western Australia. They got something similar in New York. So they've reported an increase of over 63% of all properties going onto the market for the month of October.
Where's this in
New York?
In New York. Oh, yes.
So, and it's not just the wealthy that are getting out, it's also the normal people, because people, especially when you look at socialist countries like Australia, once they finish taxing the rich and they've gone, they'll go to the next bracket, and then they'll go to the next bracket, and eventually it'll get to the everyday normal person. So, and that's what we're seeing already in America. A lot of the extremely wealthy are already out, and all these taxes are coming down, and people are going before it gets to them.
Somebody pays for the government's programs, right? So when you go to the hospital and you get free medical care, somebody's paid for that. When you get on the roads, somebody's paid for that. It's not actually free. You've actually paid for it in some form of taxation.
The state I feel the most sorry is Victoria. Their roads are diabolical, and they're still paying their road taxes and all that sort of stuff, but they're not using the money for the roads. And that's where I have a lot of problem with the governments. They're failing in their job. They're not doing what we voted them to do. And so you can either be in the system and put up with the problems, or do what we did and just get out. So we got out, and surprisingly, it doesn't cost that much money to do it. So
there you go.
So it wasn't too bad, especially if you know someone who's already done it. You can piggyback off them, and it becomes even cheaper.
It becomes easier.
Yep. Okay, so we're up to 37 odd minutes. We're supposed to be 30 minutes, but you know what? Let's make this a 45-minute show. Why? Because we can. Why? Because Aaron's not here. So Derek, knowing what's going on in the moment, seeing what's going on in America, seeing what's going on with our superannuation, the government continuously committing us to things that he hasn't actually asked us about, where do you think the next big risk is going to be, in the next big opportunity from what you've been seeing?
In Australia or internationally?
Either.
Wow.
Well, I'll let you pick this one.
Look, I see huge opportunities in the changing of the financial system. It's actually moving towards more freedom. I actually believe that's going to be the end result. It's going to be more noticeable in the United States before it filters down to other countries, because it's the leader, it's the biggest economy in the world, and it's the one that's making the moves at the moment. So I'm watching that so much, and this is why I keep my eye on what goes on in the United States more than anywhere else, because the other, like Australia, look, God bless us, Australia, but our GDP is only 1.6% of the world's economy. So that's still,
NVIDIA earns more money than what Australia does.
Right.
So.
And when you look at nations where, even like California, it's a state within a nation, and it's still fourth or fifth as far as the largest economy of the world is concerned, you kind of go, well, it kind of,
we need to take a note of America.
It puts things in perspective. And you also look at the conglomeration of the BRICS nations, which is now, I think, with the partner nations that have joined on, about 55% of the world's population. How are they positioning themselves politically against or with the United States? And how is the United States playing with that? And you've got to have a good understanding of how that all plays out. So the opportunities are definitely there, and they're exciting opportunities.
Mm.
How it plays out in Australia, again, the game is changing. The whole financial system is changing, and it's one of the first leading. I think there's going to be areas in society that are going to change, but the finance one is one of the early movers. And so I see so much opportunity in that space for people to get ahead if they know what they're doing and if they play it well.
I think people need to understand how crypto works. That's my first thing, because you hear this all the time. There's so many governments, and including Australia on this one, have said that they will be bringing out centralized digital currency. Effectively, what people don't realize, we already have it. At the moment, what the banking system is just a way to report on the fiat currency where it's supposed to be. But show me a bank that has, a couple of $100 million sitting in the back vault somewhere. That they don't. It's all digital.
Well, they invest it in the markets, right? They take your money.
Do they?
Well, they're supposed to.
Yes. So that's what I'm saying. I don't think they do. I think we already have a quasi-centralized digital currency. It's called the AUD, and it's stored on the digital banking infrastructure.
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest fears of the banks is a run on the bank. Everybody wants their money at once, because they don't have it.
Do it. And that's my point. They don't have the money to be able to do something like that.
Right.
So I personally feel we already have it. And this is why crypto is going to be one of the big important things, because at the moment, if you want to do something and you don't want the government to know about it, it's cash. Cash is king. That's the way it is. And I think people got to understand, once cash no longer exists, I don't think it's a matter of we have to stop this. I think it's a matter of when it's no longer available. How do you have a cash economy in a digital network? And I think that's where Bitcoin, Ethereum, and a few of the other cryptocurrencies like XRP are going to fill that void that's going to come up. So this is why I say I think it's ultra important for people to understand how crypto works, how the centralized digital currency is anticipated to work, and how to protect themselves around that one.
And there are other alternatives too in terms of currency as well out there as well. What can I say? Education is absolutely key in this.
So it's not cash is king, education is king. There you go. I'll let you take that.
Great knowledge puffeth up, and it can lead to pride. I think there's a humility that comes with great wealth as well, that you've got to always be learning and understanding and how it goes. But I always tie it into your life purpose. It's not about just making more money for the sake of that. That's a pointless task.
Happy tickets.
It's happy tickets. But it's also a case of, your life purpose is bigger than your wallet, and the greater the life purpose, the more resources it's going to require to fund it. And that's where the key motivator is, right? It's got to help society. You have a contribution to make to society that I can't do, that Travis can't do, and vice versa. And you need to do it because the world needs you to do your life purpose. And that's the big message that I like to put on people is like, please do it, because we need it. The world is poorer for it if you don't. And I also want to say this. Yes, there's a lot going on as far as the powers to be are, but I remain positive about it. I never make decisions out of fear. Prudence, yes, that's a different thing, right? Be prudent, put in preparations, put in situations where, if you are in an emergency, you have, I do an entire course on being prepared, from a prepper's course for finance, almost you could call it, and being prepared. And the best time to prepare is when you're not in an emergency or in a state of emergency. That's the time to start working on.
I think the people are the most prepared for a financial emergency?
Who's that?
Those American rappers with all the gold chains hanging on.
The bling.
Yeah, the bling.
The Mr. T look.
There's a reason for the bling. So yeah, no. So I training wise and education wise, I definitely believe that crypto is the way to go.
What's part of it?
It's a part of it. I think people have got to be prepared for what's happening on the property market. I genuinely believe the Australian market is massively overinflated. I think it will implode at some point, whether it's in the next 5 years, the next 10 years, I don't know. At the rate that they keep bringing people in, it's just the pressure's just building and building and building, and there's got to be a release somewhere. Where that's going to be, I don't know.
Yeah.
The third thing is having an exit strategy. Like when you're driving a car down the freeway, if someone pulls out and is going to take out the front of your car, straight away you can either hit the brakes or you swerve into the emergency lane to avoid the crash. You know what you can do and where you go. If there's a financial emergency now, what's your exit strategy?
Yeah.
How are you going to protect your family in your position? Can you go back to school? Can you have you got those abilities? So with us, there were certain things we said, nah, if the government goes across this line, we're done, pull the pin.
Yeah.
And so that's what we did. The government, and most of it was actually around the kids' education. I didn't like what they were doing, and the only way to get the kids out of the clutches of the government was actually to go offshore. So that's what we did. Yeah. And I have to say,
fair enough. You can understand why.
I have to say, the decision to go to Vietnam was the best thing we ever did. Even though they're a socialist government, we actually have more freedoms in Vietnam than what we do in Australia. We get to choose when the kids go to school, how long they go to school, what they learn out the schools. I can decide where I live, what I do while I'm there, whether I drink during the day or not, whether I drink in the streets. Like, if you walk down the streets in Australia drinking a beer, you get arrested for street drinking. That's fine in Vietnam. Obviously, there's certain things like if you're detected with any alcohol in your system while you're riding, bang, you're in jail. There's no questions asked.
And that side of things, riding or driving.
Okay. If you're in control of the vehicle with alcohol in your system, bang, no one does it.
Right.
Absolutely zero drink driving in Vietnam.
Right.
But that's what they wanted. They didn't want the crashes. The roads are already overpopulated. So, right, we'll put in policies to make that. But if I want to walk down the street, I can be as drunk as I want and I can drink in the street and they don't care.
Right.
So I find it amazing the level of freedom I actually have in a so-called socialist country versus what I have in Australia. And it's just easier living in Vietnam.
Yeah. I mean, and you've been spoiled too, because you've actually learned these techniques.
Yep. And thanks to you.
And
actually, I got to give credit also to Warren Black from Global Wealth Club. So he also taught me a lot.
So you were spoiled for life in that process. In some
total
ways.
Accident as well.
Yeah. Literally accident, right? Literal accident. And now you've gone with a Western mind, looked at the Eastern world.
Yeah.
And been able to compare the two, which is the beauty of, multiculturalism. I always get concerned when I hear people say, I've never been out of West Australia. I go, okay,
yep,
that's not helpful.
The best bit is I have a Western income in an Asian country. Like, it's simple. It really is. And I'm not joking when I say our living expenses is about 12,000 to 15,000 Australian, and that includes rent, power, water bill, food, like all your expenses. So $10 Australian a month will get us minimum download speeds of over 350 megabytes unlimited. So it's about 4 times faster than what we have here.
Wow.
Like, it just dumbfounds me that we have a third world country. Well, Vietnam effectively is a third world country, but we have better resources in Vietnam than what we have in Australia. Yeah. And that just is a massive failing on the Australian government.
Look, there's pros and cons for every nation. There's no perfect nation. We're all trying to find utopia, aren't we?
You can't drink the tap water in Vietnam.
There you go. That's a biggie.
Buy bottled water.
That's a biggie. Water. Yeah. So, I mean, there's pros and cons for every nation. But the beauty is of having that multicultural exposure makes you appreciate what you have got or what you've left or what you take with you in terms of culturally as well.
Well, this is a great thing about it, and I just go cautious of the time because we're going over. But now, because of what we've learned in Australia and through training courses and all that sort of stuff, we've been able to lift up all of Luan's family. So Luan's 2 sisters have just built houses now over in Vietnam. The family as a whole is starting to improve, and it's not just the next generation, like Luan's sisters and brother, but also their kids, because we're also helping to get some of the kids to go through school and stuff like that as well. So we're able to pull the whole family up, not just our side of things. So anyway, on that note, we are actually over time. Aaron's gonna crack the shits out of me, but I don't care. Oh, we got a message come through from him. Anyway, so let's call this one day. This has been The Greater Wealth with Derek Whittaker on my right. I'm Travis Carter in Perth on holidays. And yeah, any questions, send us a message. Anything else to add?
Live your life purpose. Do it. And the longer you delay in getting your education, well, the harder it is to change.
All right. Awesome. Edge Radio Australia, also now broadcasting on 87.6 FM out of East Perth. Thank you very much.